We now return to Let's Play Lux Delux. This time I'll be taking you through the map editor and possibly uploading it so that everyone can play it. So it's over here in File Map Editor, and this should look very familiar if you've played or watched my series on Castle Vox. So the first thing we can do here is begin to just draw a few shapes for our countries, and you do that simply by clicking, and then you can close the country by hitting space. I will not actually be doing that. This time I'm going to be using the hex map. If you want to see how it's done, just drawing it out on your own, you can watch my tutorials on Castle Vox. The process is almost identical, so it should be easy to transition. So to actually make a hex field, or a hex map, you first have to set the dimensions of your map, and you do that in Map Editor, Set Map Info. So I know, based on the images that I have created for this, that I need a width of 1124 and 655. You want this to match whatever the image is going to be. The rest of this stuff we can add later, come back to, so I'll go ahead and hit Save. And then I will come to Editor Tools, and one of these options will give me what I want. Now, you would think that maybe a thick hex field would mean that it gives you larger hexes. That's actually not the case. I'm going to choose the extra thick hex field, and it's going to give me the smallest hexes available. A little bit counterintuitive there, but that's just how it is. So, see if I can get this all in the window here. There we go. Okay, so unlike when you just draw one out, we don't really need a tracing image in the background to trace over, but I'm going to use one anyway because I don't want all of these hex tiles. So by having an image in the back, I can determine which tiles to get rid of. So that is in Map Editor, Load Tracing Image. And as you can see, based on my images, this is going to be a space map, and this is the tracing image I will be using. It's doubling up the hexes here because that's how I made the image, so those won't actually be like that for the main one. So to get rid of a hex, you just simply right-click, and you can see it's getting a little bit thinner, indicating that they are in fact disappearing. So rather than waste time and go through all of that, I will pause here and come back when I have cleaned up the map, leaving only the hexes that I want to use. Okay, so now that that is done, I will skip a few of these steps. We can create stock shapes, edit the shapes, move them around. Don't need to do that. I would like to keep the hex field as it is, so I will move down to Set Country Connections. And this is basically how the computer will determine where our troops can move throughout the game. Now fortunately this is already set up all connections automatically for me. However, there are 3 connections I want to make. I have put these wormholes in the center of the map here, and I want to be able to jump across the map to them. So I'm simply going to drag from one to the other and make this nice little triangle. Now on the map image that I actually created for this, I have not indicated via arrows or anything that they can jump from wormhole to wormhole. I probably should have done that, but I figured it was kind of worthless because the game already sort of tells you where you can move once you've clicked someone. So if you have a troop here and you click it, it'll tell you you can move to all of these square or hexes, but it should also point to these ones as well. So I see a problem here. There are a few suns actually. I left all of the suns. I do not want you to be able to move through the suns, so I'm going to come through here and make sure they are non-selectable. So let's go back into the country connections, and okay. So those will be things that you have to go around, and it looks like I had anticipated a hex up here that the map is not going to let me have. So that's too bad. It's not really necessary though. I guess this will just leave a choke point here that I did not originally anticipate being there. Maybe I'll make another addition here or something to offset that. So anyway, next step is to set the country names and the starting scenario. So first you can just click a hex, and then you can give it a name, its owner, and the initial armies. I believe this is for that option at the beginning of the game where you can select the starting setup based on any possible starting scenario that the game had. I don't know if I want to add that to my map, even though you can see here I've got colored patches for the systems that I want to actually make into the countries. They're not all even, and so having the center would definitely have a huge advantage over, pink, for example. So maybe I'll just leave those blank, but I definitely want to give each hex a name, because if you do not give the hexes names, the computer will randomly generate one for you. So it's a good idea just to do that, unless you don't care. So I'm going to take some time and go ahead and give them some names. Probably just leave space some generic name or something. I'll at least do the planets. Okay, so that ordeal is done, and you'll just have to trust me. You can see I've named this one Falgard in honor of what I think I'll name the systems. I have named all the planets, so I just picked one of the planets and named the whole system after that planet. At this point, I'm going to save the map, and I'm going to save this as the name of the map that I think will be available. I didn't see this uploaded to the system, so hopefully I can use that. Okay, so now that all of these have names, we now need to create continents. And why won't you come up here? So it defaults everything to region 0, which it's giving a value. I think I can change that a little bit later. I don't want just having the space tiles worth anything. I only want the systems as well as a few of the other little things. So first thing I'm going to need to do is create one continent, and we will call this, I believe, Movia. Movia should be available, and looks like, based on the pink colors, it will be all of those. Now I can always go back and just look at the country names maybe. Yeah, make sure that I've got all of these. It should be, yeah, down there. It's Movia is the system name that I chose. So I will go through and do all of that for everything, and then region 0 will just be everything that is space. Okay, so I think that part is done. Next, we need to give values to all of these. So set the continent names, bonuses, and colors. Let me see what this is. Okay, they've already got their names because we named them when I created the continents. This thing, I don't know what this is. I think it might be the chat window for when you're doing multiplayer. In Castle Vox, this was the score thing, but in Lux Delux, you have those buttons down at the bottom that will bring up the score tab. Obviously, I don't want this window in the way of anything, and I did not leave room for it anywhere. Down in this corner is where I'm going to have the logo. I guess I could put this down here. Boy, I was not actually anticipating this thing. You know what? I'm just going to leave this up here for now, and if anyone wants to use this map, multiplayer, that's going to be a problem. So anyway, next we get to give all of our continents their bonuses for when you conquer all of the territories within them. By default, they appear to be set to 5. I believe what I read in the documentation was that they should be given a value that is equal to the number of hexes or tiles or whatever you're using that it takes to defend the territory. So for example, Umlat up here would have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So it should actually have a bonus of 6. That might create a little bit of an imbalance, because I believe the Gyra region is, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yes. It is significantly larger. The trade-off, though, as I was designing this map, is that it is much more vulnerable. There are fewer choke points. In fact, I don't think there's one choke point, too. I mean, you have to try harder to defend it. So maybe 10 would be acceptable. But you can definitely see why I was not really looking to make starting scenarios, because if you start with the territory of 10, that puts you way ahead of, well, what's Movia? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, so Movia is significantly worse off. I might just decide to make all of these 6. This takes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Well, anyway, I'm going to go through here, make my decisions as to the bonuses I want to give, and I'll come back. Alright, so I've gone through and added what I think will be acceptable. I've decided to keep everything as is using the suggested method, and the reason for that is mostly because these guys over here have quick and easy access to Forestation, which is worth 4, and the Ord Belt, which is worth 3, whereas Zykar and Gao can do that. They can go fight for the Phelan Belt, but they are much more vulnerable and a lot more open, and they're kind of far away from anything else meaningful aside from the Phelan Belt, like the Moss Cluster or the Deep Space Mine. So I think having Movia at 5 will be fine, just because they have a much easier time getting down to here, and they have a few choke points. So I figure there's a little bit of a trade-off there. Might need a little rebalancing. Anyway, time to move on to the next step. Draw extra lines, don't need to worry about that. We can also move the country army boxes, which is just where those little symbols are going to show up. I think I will leave them as is. Set player info location. I don't know that I can actually change that. And then there's a preview of the map, which doesn't appear to do anything. So, I'm going to come back in here. Maybe I'll move this chat window down here. See, I don't know if... since I have not played multiplayer, I don't know really where the window is going to pop up, where it's going to, whether it's going to be transparent or not, that you can, get rid of it. So I'm tempted to actually move it on screen so it's useful, and just have to play test and see where it actually is and if it's going to be in the way. Anyway, the basics of the map are set up. Now we have to go ahead and get the artwork in, and then get it ready for upload after playtesting it. So basically, all we really need is a background, but I have 3 different images that I have decided to use. In order to use them, you have to create a theme. So here's the folder path that we can get to. It's in the program files. You have to go into Steam, Steam Apps, go into Common, and find your Lux Delux folder. Once you are in the actual game folder, you go into Support, Themes, and then you can create the folder, which I already have, that you want to put your assets into. So I have put in a background, which has the logo attached to it. I've also got a foreground, and this is just a black and white version of the background, and what this will do is it will be a transparent texture showing up behind the colors when the game is run. If you do not have this, it defaults to whatever the default texture is. It will not just be plain transparent. So if you want control over that to make it at least look like the background, I would suggest making a foreground version. These both have to be JPEG, and then if you were going to make an overground version, which will show up on top of the hexes, you need to make that a PNG, because it will have to have some transparency. And this is where all the planets, the stars, and all of that are located. They have to be named background, foreground, and overground for Lux Delux to actually understand what it is looking for. And like I said, all you really need is a background at minimum. There are other themes you can choose if you just want to use the generics. Well, let's actually go look at that right now. So back into the map editor, the set map info, it's defaulting, for me at least, to the theme of ocean, but you can select any of these themes that are for other maps. I'm going to pick, of course, my Galaxy Lords, and then we can pick the army pictures. For this, I'm obviously going to want spaceships. Now, I don't know if you can customize these. I know in Castle Vox you could. It does not, however, look like, at least I didn't see any in the pre-made themes. It does not look like you can make your own, but it looks like they have enough of the themes for you so that whatever you could come up with, unless you were making like an American West thing with cowboys, it doesn't look like you're missing out on too much. So anyway, we'll go with the spaceships. I'm gonna go ahead and it would help if I could spell. You know what? I'm gonna fill this in, all this stuff here. Then we'll be ready to save it, and I will come back. Okay, so I've made some cheesy little description that should be good enough. Save that, and this is apparently ready to go. I'm going to save the map. It has been saved, and I think that if I close it out now, it should be available. No preview is available. Not quite sure how I set that up. Anyway, let's see if this thing actually works. And there it is. You can see the background. You can kind of see that foreground peeking through the colors there. And the planets are all positioned outside of, or rather on top of, the colored squares. If I had left these as part of the background, they would definitely be in the back of those and we would not be able to see them. I guess I could have left them as part of the foreground and then they would show up transparently through that, but I want them to remain as they are. Now, that might be a little bit of a problem because players might think that they are obstacles, but since the colors show up behind them, I'm suspecting that will not be the case. Now, it kind of looks like we might be having a little bit of an issue here with the hex overlap. We're seeing some of those colors especially for the nation itself, it's being overtaken by some of the others, and there's not really anything I can do about that because the hex map itself was set up that way. I could go in and hand move them. I don't believe I want to do that. So let's switch on the bonuses, and we should be able to see all of the colors. I might want to go in and change the colors so they're a little bit nicer. Oops, let's continue the game. What about the info? Okay. So it looks like it's popping up in that corner anyway. So that's probably what that black box is, or the red box rather. It's not the chat window, it is the info window. Fortunately, that can be toggled. I'm going to put some of my guys here. Because it's not blue. Okay, I'm going to have to conquer one of these really quickly then. Let's, I just want to see if the lines actually make it. That's all I'm interested in. I already own that. I don't really need to do what I just did there. Now, I don't know how it determines when to stop giving you reinforcements at the beginning. It's making not sci-fi noises. Okay, so we see that those triangles are going that way. Let's conquer a wormhole, and now you can see a very, very strange thing is going on here. I was kind of hoping that the arrows would point a little bit further. I'm going to have to go in and modify this so that we actually do have an arrow pointing that way. But it looks like it works for now, so that's pretty cool. Let's just exit out of that. Okay, so that's cool. I'm going to make some adjustments, and then I think in the next episode I'll give it a full play test, make sure that at least it feels somewhat balanced, and yeah, we'll see how that looks.